No list of the world's most demanding tracks can be completed without the venue we visit today, Mount Panorama, Bathurst. The PRL GTE Sportscar Series heads down under for round 7 of the championship. This track is steeped in history from its inception in 1938 as a scenic tourist drive to becoming the venue for Australia's greatest motor race, the Bathurst 1000. But no stranger to sports car racing is this circuit, hosting the increasingly revered Bathurst 12-hour GT cars first entering in 2011, and they've been coming back ever since. Who will join some of history's finest and add their name to the list of those who have conquered the mountain? Let's find out live on the Global Sim Racing channel. My name is Ryan Jones, alongside me in the booth is Chris Phoebe, behind the scenes is our director Joe Peake, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Chris, what have you got for us on this monstrous 6.2 kilometer track?
Well, first off, this track is terrifying. 6.2 kilometers or 3.8 freedom units, 23 turns around this gigantic course. And we're going to have a 60-minute race here today with the GTE cars, and I think we're in for a harrowing adventure here in Mount Panorama.
Yes, I think we certainly are. It's a track where mistakes cannot be afforded. Before we get into it, let's take a quick moment to thank our sponsors. As always, today's race is brought to you by Simsa. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GT Sportscar Series will get a Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team in the Teams Championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at buttkicker.com. So, qualifying, we must apologise, a few technical issues, and we have gone live a little bit late, but nonetheless, we have got live before the green flag, which is key. And qualifying's got 10 seconds left, and as it stands, it is Karl Modov that is fastest from Christian Eisler in second. And the clock's going to tick down, and I don't think we're going to see any more improvements in the session, which means one thing. Although, I'm going to correct myself, Chris, because it does mean the drivers can finish their lap.
Oh, so they do get one more shot at trying to put a time in.
There we go.
You know, I'm more partial to the oval track style of racing, so this is these 2-minute laps are exhausting for me. I get like 3 turns in and I'm over it. I need a break.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the longer tracks on the calendar. This one's 6.2 kilometers in length. And watching Christian Eisler, he's making his way down Conrod Straight, reaching speeds in excess of 270 kilometers an hour, jumping on the brakes just before the 100-meter board for the chase, throwing it to the left, getting it back to the right, and then setting himself up for Murray's corner, the final corner on the circuit, turn 23, would you believe? Crucial not to run wide because that grass and the wall comes up very quick. Can he eclipse the time set by Karl Modov? No, he cannot. It's a 58.095, 700ths adrift of his previous best, and 3/10ths adrift of Karl Modov, who's put an absolute mile on the field.
Yeah, that's a very impressive lap by Modov here. Pretty good gap on the rest of the field. We'll see how that plays out here as we get to race time.
And that is everyone done and across the line here at Mount Panorama. So what we can do is go ahead and have a look at our starting grid here for round 7 of the championship. And that pole position does go the way of Karl Modov with a 57.7, 3/10ths ahead of Christian Eisler there in second place. Paulo Munoz starts from third ahead of Abner Acosta in fourth. Row 3 occupied by Andres Espinoza and Christopher Pfeffer. Jean-Marc Tremblay starts from 7th ahead of Horatio Carl Quinn in 8th. And the top 10 rounded out by Ken Huber and Anthony Pisano.
Just outside of the top 10 is going to be Sean Romig with the driver next in line with the best smelling name, Caleb John Lavender. William Jansen will be next up in lucky number 13 with David Duino in 14th. Ignacio Rodriguez Freitas will be 15th, and James Hebb, Ignacio Hortal, Robert Elder, Tyler DeZube, and Chase Mundy completing your top 20.
So 21st with Kenny Rodriguez and Sean Duhamel starts in 22nd. Jason Ray 23rd, Christopher Albright from 24th. The grid rounded out by Spencer Semkowicz in 25th. Jeff Carlo 26th. Gary Schilling didn't set a time in the qualifying session. The clock finally ticks down. We will have a rolling start here, so we've still got a little bit of time to fill. Why don't we quickly have a look at our championship picture? And it is incredibly tight, this championship. Just 4 points separating the top two. Abner Acosta won 130 points. Just ahead of Christian Eisler. The team standings too are pretty close too, just 40 points separating Ponto CL Racing Blue and RSR Esports. The gap continues to get bigger. It's turning into a two-horse race in front of that team standings, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely a pretty good gap beginning to separate Punto CL Racing and RSR Esport from the rest of the field. It's definitely coming down to a two-team race there, but nonetheless, still a lot of great competition out there amongst these teams.
Yeah, certainly. Let's take a look then at the driver standings. 4 points. It's incredibly tight. I don't think you can find a much tighter championship 7 rounds in. As the team standings come up on screen once again. Give us a second. I'll talk you through it though. Paulo Munoz is third. He's on 112 points. He's 18 points adrift of Acosta in the lead. He's 14 points adrift of Eisler in second. He's only 3 points ahead of Karl Modov, who sits fourth. The top 5 is rounded out. 1 point adrift of Modov by Anthony Pisano. The entire top 5 is ridiculously tight.
And not only that, but after today, there's just 3 races left. And that means the season's in the latter stages.
Yeah, it does. It means that we only have but no room for mistakes. The race details then, Chris, for this one, just before we get underway.
Yeah, the Porsche, Ferrari, Ford, and BMW cars will be represented on the track. A 60-minute timed race. An open setup, so a lot of innovation here by these drivers. And a 20 incident cap. There is some bonus points on the line. 1 bonus point for fastest lap, 1 for pole. So some extra points on the line here as well. Some already going to the drivers in the field. But 60 minutes is going to be the plan today.
And let's get this one underway then for 1 hour of racing around this track. Let's hope the attrition rate is a little bit lower than the real-life Bathurst 12 hour just a few days ago. Karl Modov then starts from pole. Christian Eisler outside row 1. Paulo Munoz from 3rd and Abner Acosta from 4th. Who gets better at the jump then on this rolling start as they come through Murray's corner? In the hands of Karl Modov now. He'll pin that throttle and we'll go racing here at Mount Panorama. And a pretty poor start there for Christian Eisler. He's going to have to come down and cover the inside for turn 1. Not going to be able to do it. They'll go 3 wide into Hell Corner. And around the outside goes that BMW. Car number 5, Abner Acosta, will take the spot away from Eisler. Munoz put himself up into 2nd. The rest of the field filtering through. And it looks to be all clean.
As a beautiful field of cars we have here today, Ryan. And they all look so great driving through... I don't know what you guys call it down in Australia. Is it wildlife, or is it just like scary stuff?
Bushland. And there's a big accident happening further down in the field. Just trying to figure out where it's actually happened. But someone has gone around in a big way. I think it might be Gary Schilling, who was at the back of the field potentially. He's certainly dropped off a long way. And we'll get back to that one in a moment's time as they make their way down through Skyline and through the S's for the first time. Pretty decent lead for Modov there. Munoz not letting him get away. Acosta Isla, Espinosa, all in close tow proximity behind them. You can't overtake anywhere on this mountain from basically the cutting up until this corner here, Forest Elbow. It's all single file line, single file action. If you try to make an overtake, 9 times out of 10, it's going to end in disaster, Chris.
Yeah, once again, I am woefully inexperienced with these types of cars, but I can say from what I've been watching, this track is really, it's more of the challenge than the other drivers out there. I mean, this is really a circuit that's going to challenge you as a driver, and once you mix in the fact that you're in a competition, it's just mind-blowing the kind of laps these guys are turning out here.
It is. Let's get a replay up then of that incident on the first lap as they finally complete it. A long lap here at Mount Panorama, 2 minutes long, that one, as they came across the line. And mowed off with a 7-second lead.
You're telling me that was just one lap?
Yeah, a little bit longer than the 4-corner oval. And let's take a look then at the replay of this incident. This was heading down Mountain Straight on the first lap, further back in the field, towards the latter stages of the entire field, in fact, into the braking zone for Griffin's Bend. This is car number 17. So this is Gary Schilling. And has he just drifted onto the grass on entry? I suspect that might be the case. Oh, yes. He's come on, stuck in a peak way there. Might have been ahead of him. But Schilling definitely got a piece of the wall on the inside there. Just trying to figure out what's going on there up ahead of him. Now, there we go. It was Elder heading through Mountain Straight. 3 cars, bumper to bumper. Contact ensued. And some lucky people not to get more damage than that, I would actually suggest there. As we head back to live pictures, Modolf continues to stretch that gap out front. The battle is for P4 between Christian Isla and Andres Espinosa, who's going to throw that car to the inside as they head their way through and into the kink of the chase. Wisely, Christian Isla decides to back out of it and slot in behind Espinosa. As they head through the chase, Espinosa gets a little bit loose heading through the 21st corner, but gets that move done, puts himself up into P4 behind them. Jean-Marc Tremblay is coming under pressure from Anthony Pisano, who goes by. And Ken Huber wants a piece of the action as well, as Pisano runs wide off the final corner, just avoids collecting the Tremblay machine on re-entry. And now Ken Huber is going to try and capitalise from this too, as there's a lot of cars in this little group here. Sean Romig as well is in there, Caleb John Lavender. And Fredes had a big lunge around the outside of all of them at turn 1. Didn't work too well for him. William Jensen's just sat back watching this as well. So this is about 6 cars all vying for P7.
These guys are racing awfully hard for a track that's about as wide as your arm width. It's kind of great to see these guys so willing to mix it up, but you got to wonder how long they can do this before the track decides to bite back.
Do as Jean-Marc Tremblay runs wide through the cutting, and he's going to get swallowed up by Huber and by Romig too. And Lavender's going to go around the outside. Under the tree they go and into Reed Park. That was a brave move. Fredes will go by as well. Tremblay's continuing to get absolutely freight chain as Janssen goes through. And Tremblay has lost, I think, 5 spots there. Mundy, Portal, and Duino all went through around Solomon Park and McPhillippi Park as well. And through goes Robert Elder. I'm wondering whether Tremblay has a bit of an issue on that car, because he's lost, what was that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 spots in the space of 5 corners, and he's still losing time now.
Yeah, there's something that's got to be not quite right on that car. It just looks like he's trying to nurse it around. It is not handling well at all.
It isn't. I've just gone on board. Ah, that explains it. I've just got on board, and he's got some steering lock on that machine, right hand down, which is probably why he is dropping so much time. The slightest amount of steering damage at this track is absolutely disastrous with the walls. It's basically a street circuit. Well, it is a street circuit. It's a tourist drive around the top half of the circuit. You miss your line, but the slightest of margins, you'll find the fence in a big, big way. So that explains that one. and he'll have to come down to pit lane, I suspect, and get that damage repaired. Back out front, it's 1.3 seconds the gap. For P8, there's a good battle happening though. Ken Huber and Sean Romig continuing to go at it. John Lavender and Fridez just the ways behind them. They're in battle as well, making the way down Mountain Straight. You can see that trainer cars all making their way down towards Griffin's Bend. And Sean Romig incredibly deep on the brakes, finding a big gain there on Ken Huber into Griffin's Bend. But the cutting will be the last big braking opportunity for him, and he'll have to sit there now until they get to Forest Elbow. Maybe try and set himself up for a move down Conrod Straight into the chase. And on board with Sean Romig now, as well, as you can see how the track dips away here as they head down Skyline, and they begin the descent of about 174 meters. I think that's about 55 feet as they head through the dip up and now into Forest Elbow. And Huber's pulled a bit of time on him through here, so Romig will struggle to get that slipstream. We will get slipstream, but not enough to make a move into the chase, as you can see off in the distance too. The leading trio of cars as everyone fights for slipstream down this long straight.
So you said this track is a tourist drive when it's not in action as an active racetrack. So this place that just chews up and spits out cars is where families will go and take a nice drive on a Sunday?
Yeah. It's an interesting drive that one day I hope to do myself. We can go up there and do a lap of the track, obviously not at racing speed. A nice 60 km/h speed limit across there. But when it was designed by the mayor, I believe, of Bathurst. He wanted a racetrack, but there were laws and legislations in place preventing so. And so what he designed was a tourist drive that he then petitioned to become a racetrack. And that's how Bathurst, the Mount Panorama history started, and a bit of slyness to get this underway, and thank God it happened, because what a track it turned into.
Oh yeah, he would have had my vote for sure. And our director Joe Peak is telling me there's people that actually live around this track too. I guess that just goes to show how much cooler Australians are than people here in the United States, because we have people that build houses next to racetracks that have been there for 50, 60 years, and they just try to shut them down.
Yeah, there's quite a number of houses. There's one actually right on the cutting on the outside, a massive house there. There's a couple places down Conrod Straight, farmland of course in the side. I think there's a bed and breakfast actually on the left-hand side of Conrod Straight. So plenty of people making a living and living around this racetrack, just adds to the culture. And when they get a massive race event here, like the Bathurst 1000 or the Bathurst 12-hour, there'll be people camping up in the campgrounds around McPhillamy Park, Solomon and Reed Park for up to a week beforehand, all vying for that best spot, and it becomes a massive week-long event. As the battle for P7 rages, I wonder here if Huber's going to be under pressure into the chase. Sean Romig looking potentially close enough, goes for the move up the inside, late on the brakes, takes the spot away, and Romig's going to lose out to Lavender too, who sweeps around the outside at turn number 22, and Huber's going to lose out to Fredez as well, loses 3 spots in the space of 2 corners, and probably a little bit upset about that one. And that just shows how prime the racing line is. As soon as you get off it, you lose so much time.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. As soon as he left the line, it just seemed like he was out to lunch. And ooh, got a driver going around. Paulo Munoz going off track.
That was a replay there of his spin just on the exit of the chase. He goes back to P7 now in this group of cars behind Pisano, Horatio Calquin, who is in 5th place. It's a big battle. Oh, Calquin's run wide there through the cutting, and they're going to need to sort themselves out. Pisano will sweep around the outside, take that spot away, put himself up into P5. There's a big gap between 4th and 5th of about 6 seconds between Isa and now Pisano there. So I wonder whether Pisano, now that he's cleared Calquin, can make some inroads into that one. Still 50 minutes to go on this race, so plenty of time. and of course pit stops as well. Speaking of which, this track does open itself up to a bit of strategy. Because of the nature of the track, there's a couple of long straights, of course, Conrad Straight and Mountain Straight. Also the downhill section. Plenty of opportunity to just ease off that throttle and save a bit of fuel.
Yeah, I was going to question how pit strategy really can play a role here. Because, I mean, probably the worst case scenario would be running out of fuel on the back end of this track and being so far away from the pits.
Yeah. Thing is, if you run out at the top of the mountain, you can use gravity to get you around towards pretty much Murray's Corner. And then from then on, you can just about sneak your way into pit lane. You've had a couple of retirements in this one already. Christopher Albright, Christopher Pfeffer, and Jason Ray have all failed to continue on in this race, and they're currently sat in pit lane, getting some damage repaired. Whether they can get back out there remains to be seen. Decent battle happening just outside the top 10 as well. For 12th place, William Janssen there in 12th. He's got David Duino right behind him, and Hortel behind Duino, and in fact Chase Monday there in 15th place, not too far adrift from these guys either. So this is starting to shape up into a juicy little battle, this one.
Yeah, and monitoring the speeds these drivers are going down this track. In addition to this track being absolutely terrifying, and these guys racing just inches away from each other on such a narrow track, these guys are also hauling the mail around this track. I mean, they are really hustling these cars around, and this is just absolutely amazing. You know, as I mentioned, I don't have a ton of experience with this track, but I think I might be in love.
Yes, Panorama has had effects on many people. It's forever immortalized. I feel like sometimes a little bit underrated. It is, in my opinion, maybe a little bit biased, up there with the likes of Le Mans and Spa is some of the greatest racetracks in the world. It's so demanding, it's so tough. And Bathurst 12-hour, which is competed in via these particular types of cars, the BMWs, the Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Audis even, shows just the international talent that comes to this event, shows just how good of a racetrack it is.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair statement to call this track underrated. I'm someone who considers myself a pretty diverse race fan, and this is a track that really I have not too much experience with, as we have a nice battle for position there between Hortel and Mundy.
Yeah, and Mundy was not able to get that move done. Hortel decided to defend the inside. Mundy couldn't get it done around the outside. If he gets this one done, he'll be able to have a look at two more spots right in front of him as well. The battle for P9 is looking pretty spicy as well. Caleb Lavender has got Ignacio Rodriguez Fredes for very close company. And is Lavender going to think about defending to the inside here for Griffin's Bend? I think he's just about far enough ahead to not warrant it. And Ken Huber's just off the back of these guys too, trying to recover from that very quick loss of 3 positions about a lap or so ago, as they make their way into the cutting and now into that section of track where patience is paramount. You can, if you're really brave, make some moves. If the car in front of you makes a mistake into Nick Villamy, sometimes you might see an occasional move there, but it's so rare and so often comes off horribly.
Yeah, I was going to mention there is got to be a certain amount of gamesmanship when racing near somebody else on this track. I mean, these guys are awfully brave as we take a look at a replay here.
This is of Ignacio Hortel, who's had an incident, it seems, at the cutting. And just got to the... She tried to look to the inside and then got helped under the tree by Chase Mundy, and a big collision at the end it was between the two of them, and I think Mundy is going to have a lot of damage on his machine as well, and that's really unfortunate. Hortel was showing some of that patience we were talking about. Mundy, not quite as much.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was touching on before we went to the replay here, was this track doesn't give you a lot of room. So if you're going to make a move, sometimes you just have to count on the other person being willing to give up more so than just straight racecraft.
And not to anyone's surprise, I don't think Chase Mundy has brought that machine down into pit road. Carl Modov has opened up now a 5-second lead over Abner Acosta. He is stretching his legs and making this one look very, very easy out front. Acosta himself has got a 4-second lead over Espinoza in third, who's not really managed to pull much of a gap from Christian Iser. He's only about a second off him. Then it's 6 seconds back to Pisano's all by himself. He's making some inroads ahead of Paulo Munoz, and then we go all the way back to 21 seconds adrift to find the big field of cars. It is Horatio Calquin, Sean Romig, Fredes, Lavender, Huber, Janssen, Duino, all in pretty close proximity. You can see on the screen as well the lap comparison of how Modov's been able to pull out from Acosta. Some big gains, 0.6 of a second, 3 of the last 4 laps is an incredible margin for Modov. I wouldn't suggest he's going too hard because there's really no reason for him to. I think he's just got that natural pace, and qualifying suggested it, and he's been able to replicate it here in the race, hasn't he, Chris?
Yeah, he's putting in some tremendous laps, and really doesn't look like he's fighting the car very much at all. Just smooth as butter out there, as they like to say.
Smooth as butter. Indeed, he has been. Have to start thinking about at some point his pit stop. They can go about 40 minutes. There's been a crash. Andres Espinoza, I think, has run wide off the final corner. I don't think that was the only incident though. He just found the fence. I think it was Paulo Munoz. It wasn't Munoz. It was someone coming down here through the dipper. It was Rodriguez, sorry. Kenny Rodriguez with a 969 heading down through the dipper into Forest Elbow and finding himself in a spot of bother, just pinching the rears, which I found yesterday doing an IMSA race is incredibly easy to do in that Ferrari. Just the way that car's set up, Chris, because everywhere else on the track, it seems pretty stable, but as soon as you get to Forest Elbow, the rear's really pinched. I think it's got something to do with the downhill, the very sharp downhill change of direction there.
Yeah, I was going to say that I imagine a lot of that could probably be down to gravity again, our good old friend Gravity, hanging out.
Everyone's best friend until it isn't, until you run out of fuel heading through the cutting and you've got to get uphill before you head back down the hill. Then you're in a load of trouble from that point on, as just having a look at this battle again between Fredes and Lavender. Lavender and Fredes are lapping about the same lap times. That's his Chiba behind them. They're all just biding their time sort of until they reach that pit stop window. I said they can go about 40 minutes on fuel, which means it's about a 20-minute window between where they can start coming into pit and make it to the end, and where they need to come into pit before they run out of fuel. I think we'll see a few people trying the undercut here today. Being such a hard track to pass on, it could prove very key to make some spots up. If you've got the pace but can't quite get by, you come in a lap early, that one lap could be the difference so you can get ahead.
You know, I've been kind of checking out a few different drivers here to kind of get a feel for the different racing styles. And we talked about Modov just being so smooth out there, but there's a lot of drivers here that they look like they're pretty fast from my perspective, but it looks like they're almost fighting the track, the way they just are throwing the cars around this place.
Well, it's a pretty cool track out there, which is definitely aiding them. 26 degrees Celsius. I should really grab the Fahrenheit one of that. I'm sure you've probably got it there, Chris. On the screen, there you go.
Yep, 79 freedom units.
Yes. Yes, I don't know why I can't just use Celsius like the rest of us. But it's a pretty cool track. A lot of grip on offer for these guys. What it doesn't assist them, though, is the track itself is just plain brutal. You can't make a mistake. The walls come up so quickly. There's only one corner on the track where there's plenty of runoff, and that's the chase. And the reason for that is because you enter that corner at 300 kilometers an hour. It's just somewhere you've got to be in your rhythm. If you lose your rhythm, that's when you see the mistakes start to creep in. And these drivers, you've got to be fully committed, because if you're not, that's when you lose the rhythm, that's when the mistakes creep in, that's where your race can end, isn't it, Chris?
Oh, for sure. And it seems like so much of this track is really getting into that rhythm. I mean, you see when a driver gets passed and kind of gets out of that normal routine that they've kind of built up, it seems like they lose 2 or 3 spots.
It does. I mentioned, excuse me, I mentioned that Andres Espinosa had an issue at the final corner. Well, now he's trying to rebound from it as he goes to the inside of Christian Iser. This is a repeat of what we saw at the start of the race, and once again, Iser is the patient man, the conservative man who backs off and lets him go through. All of this has just continued to drop them miles off the back of Acosta. I said it was a 4-second gap, Acosta to third. It's now 7 seconds. So they're losing a chunk of time to the guys in front of them doing all of this. They're 12.2 off the lead of the race. But Espinosa takes that spot away. Can he keep it this time? Well, let's find out over the course of the next 37 minutes. Almost halfway in this one already, Chris. Going by pretty quickly. And we will see some pit stops pretty soon, I do suspect.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, and hopefully these guys have been paying attention to their fuel gauge as this has been having all this fun out here at Mount Panorama.
Just taking note too that Modoff in that championship battle as well, probably worth mentioning, leading over. He's back and forth at the moment. He's holding a massive lead at the moment. He's running. Paulos Munoz is not having a great race. Abner Acosta sat there in second, so he won't fall too much adrift. But if Acosta happened to have a little bit of an issue out there, maybe drop a spot or two, Modoff's in position to gain a ton and potentially leapfrog himself into championship contention heading into the final couple of rounds. Also a two-time champion of the series, as he is, as is Costas. They both know how to get it done. They both know how to make the championship work in their favour. They know how to play that championship battle, not be too aggressive when it really matters. But I think in this case, he's so far adrift. Modoff needs to be aggressive. He needs to win this race. This is crucial for him. Acosta can afford to just be conservative and sit there in P2, and that's probably why we're seeing a 6-second battle here. A 6-second gap between the two of them as well.
Yeah, it's I definitely think this is one of those cream rises to the top situations. I mean, you have championship level drivers in this very competitive series, and they're proving their mettle here, both with pretty sizable gaps over the positions around them up front.
Let's go back to P9. Rodriguez Fredes just dropped a couple tyres off the edge of the circuit heading through Murray's corner. He's got Lavender about half a second, 7/10 per second off the back of him across the line. Ken Huber, after he dropped those spots in very quick succession, hasn't dropped any further. He's stayed with these guys and clung onto their tail. Unfortunately for him, it's much harder to gain a spot than it is to lose a spot, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, these drivers... Ooh, as Fredes gets into the wall there, I was going to mention it's pretty easy to hold your spot, but it looks like Fredes is possibly limping along with some damage now. He got the wall pretty good there, Ryan.
And we'll go to replay here of Fredes. And it was just... I think he was actually put off there by Lavender, who was gaining on him, and then he found the fence again on the left-hand side just after the cutting, as Lavender tried to get through. He turned left into the wall, but he just ran wide off the cutting, and that's what started it all. And big damage to the right hand side of that machine, damage to the left as well. He's going to have to come down into pit lane. Won't be the first driver to do so, because Tremblay has pitted from the pack as well, and he's going to come out a long way down the order. I don't think this is scheduled though, because he's been sat there for a long time, Chris.
Yeah, it looks like he may be trying to get some damage repaired as he hangs out there in pit lane, which is not where you want to be for any longer than you have to.
Yeah, so Tremblay's run into an issue somewhere out on track. Will have to get his damage repaired. Paulo Munoz decides to come down into pit lane. This is a scheduled pit stop. He was running 6 at the time. He'll come down, gets the feel on that car. Don't take tyres, it'll take too much time. It's only a 6-minute race. Tyres can make that distance relatively quickly. And he will head back out on track, somewhere in the teens of the field as his pit stop's done. And he rejoins. It'll be right in front of Sean Dunal there. So rejoin in 14th place. You might have to defend here because Duhamel, coming off the racing surface, is going to have the better run down Mountain Straight. Will it be enough of a run to sneak down the inside of Munoz there into Griffin's Bend? Doesn't seem so. Munoz will hold on. So he'll head round now in 14th place and try to make some inroads with guys he was racing for a top 5 position. Wonder whether this will make anyone else from that battle pit. Maybe Pisano or Horatio Calquin might pit in response to that, trying to cover off the undercut. Like we've seen in the series, a lot of drivers tend to go long and run the field down. I think the reason for that, Chris, is because the car, as I said, the tyres can make the 60 minutes pretty easily. So as the car gets lighter, it generally gets quicker. So you want to run that fuel out and have the car as quick as possible for as long as possible. If you pit early, you've got heavy fuel in the car for most of the race until right at the very end.
You know, probably one of the reasons I'm a terrible road racer is I didn't think about that, but it makes perfect sense. Towards the end of the run, you're going to be as quick as you're going to be. So you might as well run it as low as you can and then come in and fill it up and run it down again.
Go back to P8 here. Not Paulo Munoz, he was P8. The P8 battle is John Lavender. Ken Huber's got very much, he's got quite much, rephrase that, he's got quite a bit closer to the back of John Lavender over the last lap or so, and is starting to put the pressure onto him here. Tremblay's finally made his way back out onto the race track after an extremely long pit stop. It was in excess of 5 minutes, I do believe, that one. So his race is pretty much done. Just out there now trying to reconcile some points, Chris.
Yeah, with the championship race as tight as it is in this series, pretty much hanging out and trying to get as many points as you can is gonna be a pretty big deal here, with just a few rounds remaining after this event.
Yeah, certainly. It's getting down to crunch time in this one. Getting down to crunch time in terms of pit stops too. Halfway mark coming up in a few seconds time. And Ken Huber, particularly strong down the mountain, through Brock's Skyline, through the S's, through the Dipper. Gained a bit of time there on Lavender. But Lavender just before Forest Elbow, able to pull out just enough to prevent Huber from trying to slice one down the inside. Slipstream though, maybe Huber's best friend. Lavender's not going to be able to do much to break it here. Sits his car right in the middle of the track, which, interestingly, probably not the best spot to be. There's actually a crest right in the middle of the track. The track comes to a rise in the middle as you head down Conrad Straight. You generally want to be on either side of it. You can find your car just struggle a bit if you sit right on top of it there. So Lavender managing to manage that just fine and holds on for another lap, but it definitely seems that Huber's got the pace and he's going to get through pretty quickly.
So is that one of the quirks that this track may have from being a public road when it's not being used for racing purposes?
Yeah, I would suggest so. That's probably the one of the reasons for it, just the nature of the track. Conrad Straight, of course, it used to be one long straight from the exit of Forest Elbow all the way down to Murray's Corner. And now, in 1987, I believe it was, in order to prepare for the World Touring Car Championship to adhere to FIA standards, the straight was too long for the regulations of that series. So they added in the chase, the kink to the right, and then the corner to the left and back to the right to rejoin what was the old Conrad Straight that we see in place now. That was added in 1987 ahead of that series coming to Mount Panorama. and actually improved the safety of the track quite a bit. So Conrod Straight, it used to be a fair bit longer than what it is now.
Well, once again, that's terrifying. They had such a long straightaway on this track. Speaking of how terrifying this track can be, it's reached out and bit quite a few drivers. Looks like we had 8 drivers that have called it a day early here at Mount Panorama, kind of owing to the fact that this track is a very, very demanding course and sometimes a little bit too demanding.
Yeah, it's a common theme that we see. I mean, if you look at real life as well, how talented the drivers are in the Bathurst 12-hour, the attrition rate before the race even began was phenomenal. Some of the biggest crashes we've ever seen, in fact, at the mountain happened this past weekend, just showing how brutal this track is. It's so hard. Even the best drivers in the world struggle at times. It's just that place. It's got that Nordschleife sort of
That's a
yeah.
That's a great comparison to draw with this track. I didn't really make the connection at first, but to kind of tie it into an oval track state of mind for maybe those that aren't super familiar with this type of racing, it's almost the road course equivalent of like a Darlington, a track that is very demanding, that you really have to respect the course more so than even your competitors. As they say about Darlington, you're racing the track, you're not racing the competitors. And this is a track that's very much in that same grain.
Certainly. It's up there with... it'd be interesting to see a statistic, actually, of tracks around the world, races that have been completed, the amount of average retirees per race, and compare it to Mount Panorama's P8. Exchanged hands there. Lavender ran wide off the cutting, and that pressure that Hugo is applying pays off, and he moves up into P8 relatively easily in the end. But yes, it'd be interesting to compare that statistic to Mount Panorama to see just how high the attrition is at this track, because I would suspect it's pretty high up there.
This was a great move by Huber. Looks like you mentioned, Lavender ran wide. He hung out on the outside around the corner, and there he was taking the spot. And that's a move that he's probably been waiting to make for probably a good 10 minutes now, it feels like.
Let's go to Munoz, who, remember, has already made his pit stop. He's currently running down the order as a result of that. We saw him rejoin right in front of Duhamel there in 15th place. He's already gained 1 spot through pit stops or otherwise. He's now on the back of Robert Elder. He's currently 13th. This will put him up into P12. Elder's taking a very defensive line. Now edges that car back to the racing line. This will allow Munoz down to the inside for the kink. He gets the overlap quite late. It looks so easy going side by side through there as he takes the spot away. But I can tell you, it is extremely difficult. The car on the inside, if you clip that curb, it will fire you straight to the car on the outside. It's unforgiving. And also, the car on the outside can get very loose, and that can drag you down to the inside car. It's extremely tough. I'm surprised I don't see more crashes from side-by-side action through there, because every time I've tried it, I've had a mini heart attack, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, with all that runoff area, it's probably the only part of the track where somebody might be feeling even somewhat comfortable to be a little more daring. Because that's got to be the only spot on the track that that doesn't just leave you squeezed in by the walls.
William Jensen's made his pit stop too. He's come in and he's now gone out, and he will rejoin the racetrack in front of Fredes, who's made his pit stop too. That's right, Fredes did, didn't he? But he has made his pit stop, got that car back out on track. So he rejoins behind Duhamel. In fact, a few drivers actually, it seems like, have pitted in the last couple of laps. So we're starting to see it cycle through now. And we will see the rest of the field coming down pretty quickly. I said they can go about 40 minutes on field. Well, they've got 4 minutes left until that 40-minute window is up. So I think we'll see the rest of you race leaders starting to come soon. None of those guys have actually made a pit stop. Modov's still running around on track with a 7.8 second lead. It's 20 seconds back to third place Espinosa. Acosta's still sat there in second. No one from the top 5 has pitted yet. Going to be really interesting to see whether this undercut works for Munoz at all.
So looks like we're gonna take a look at pit road here.
Didn't quite catch which driver that was. It's come down into pit lane.
That's a Romig on the pit lane.
Ah. There you go. He's quite a ways down the order already, so he's going to rejoin. Where's he going to rejoin? There goes Robert Elder, who goes by, and Romig will rejoin right in front of Duhamel. So right where Munoz came out, and he will be behind Munoz by about 4 to 5 seconds, it seems like. So Munoz...
Yeah, he gained a lot of time on pit lane there. Romig was about 3 seconds faster through the pit stop than Munoz. So wonderful to see them coming together here shortly with just all that time gained. That's got to be a huge help.
Well, there's that thing too. If you go longer, you can get a bit of a better picture on how much fuel you're using in the race. Of course, it can change between sessions, depending on the weather conditions, depending on how your race goes. If you're tucked up behind someone, you're not going to be using as much fuel. It's just simple physics, as far as my physics knowledge goes. And so, if you go longer, and suddenly that car disappears, you realise, hang on, I'm going to need a little bit more fuel, or a little bit less fuel if you suddenly have someone in front of you. And what Romig might have found there is, as the stint went on, the fuel required started to decrease. Munoz, when he pitted earlier, probably filled up to what he thought at the time was the minimum amount of fuel needed. But turns out, maybe a bit too much.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another thing I didn't think of, Ryan. You're a genius. Just
Far
that
from it.
extra, just having that time to really figure out what kind of fuel usage you have. I mean, that may have just gained 3 seconds for Romig.
As we have a lot of people now coming down to pit lane. Lavender and Huber have pitted as well. Horatio Calquin has pitted. So 3 cars from the top 10 down into pit lane at the moment. Don't think anyone else in the top 10 has pitted. So Paulo Munoz will go by all of these guys out on the racetrack. And he's put himself up now into P10. Or be P7 actually. So he's almost back to where he was before the pit stop phase. Huber's come out a long way in front of Lavender actually. Where is... I've just missed actually. Where... There he is. Calquin's heading down to Griffin's bench. I thought for a moment that Calquin had an extremely long pit stop, but not the case. Did Munoz just hit the wall? I think he got very, very close to it. Oh, coming out of Griffin's bend. We should get a replay for that. That was as close as you ever want to get to hitting the fence.
Yeah, if he didn't hit it, he owes a favor to somebody.
Take a look at this. This is the onboard then. As he heads down the mountain, dips away into the braking zone. It's a deceptive corner, this one. It's so hard to get that one right. And Munoz, it seemed that he was on the racing line, but as the track raises uphill, the grip just seems to fade on the exit of the corner right at that crucial point. And that rear end so often just slaps that wall. Sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't. Luckily in this case, Munoz didn't have to play that gamble. He missed it by about a hair's width.
So it looks like our leader might be heading to pit road here. Headed to pit road, past tense.
Yeah, he's headed to pit road. He's been in pit road. He's out of pit road already. And he's rejoined in a world of his own. So this is interesting. Munoz has been caught by Horatio Calquin on this lap. And Calquin's looking like he's going to be able to get this move done pretty quickly. This is a battle for P7. And Calquin's going to look to the inside, just fakes him out, trying to fill the mirrors of Paulo Munoz into Hell Corner. And wasn't close enough to make the move. Probably cost himself actually a chance at Griffin's bend by doing that. But just letting Munoz know that he's there. There's under 20 minutes left to go in the race, so I don't think Munoz is going to be too kind in letting him go. We're just waiting on a couple more people to pit as well. It seems that most of the field has finally pitted. They've all been in fact. So everyone's finally made their pit stop. Couldn't make it go any longer. And David Duino, who scored 6 last time by his last car to pit. So this moves this battle for Munoz and Calquin back up into the P6 battle. So in the end, that early stop for Munoz doesn't gain him anything. But it was worth a try.
Yeah, nothing earned, nothing gained, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to take a gamble on a track where you can't overtake for over 50% of the lap. You've sometimes got to try that gamble strategy-wise to try and move yourself up a few spots. And I'll tell you what, most other series, most other cars, most other tracks, the undercut works. But such as an Acura, it's only a 60-minute race. Tyres don't come into play. The undercut is based largely off of tyres. Because, for those who don't really know, when you come in and you take your fresh tyres, you head out on track with brand new tyres. The cars that have the new tyre model, it may take a couple laps to get them back up to 10. And once they do, you're going to be lapping sometimes over a second lap quicker than the guys who are on 20, 30 lap older tyres, who are just trying to go the longest in. And don't really need to point out that that is a massive advantage. The disadvantage comes at the end of the race when your tyres start to wear and they're on the fresher tyres.
So, for the people that are a little more simplistic like me, tires equal good.
Yes. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Tires equal good. Bad tires equal very bad.
Now, I gotta ask Ryan, as we see the pass about to happen there, dives to the inside. Oh, they're gonna touch.
He's hit him, and a hip check. They're at the middle of Griffin's Bend, just a little too deep for Horatio Calquin. Heading into the corner, slid up into the side of Munoz, who I must say was giving him plenty of room, and has hip checked him out of the way. I wonder whether Calquin's going to redress that position, because I think there's going to be a bit of uproar from that one in regards to Munoz's reaction. Take a look at the replay here. There was so much room given between them. There was so much room for Calquin to get up the inside, but he's just overrun the corner, and I think he stood up about car width and a half until he hit Munoz on the entry to the corner. Never looked like making it, and Munoz in fact has got a bit of damage to his front right now as a result of that. And Calquin has dropped off quite a bit on this lap. Sean Romig's caught the pair of them as well, so it's about to be a 3-car battle. And Munoz is right in his slipstream to get one back here at Calquin, who had pulled quite a gap heading into the cutting as a result of contact. He's now under pressure from Munoz once more. How does this play out? Is a return to serve in order for Paulo Munoz? He doesn't go for the lunge up the inside. Just biding his time a bit. Maybe recognising that Calquin's got the faster car. Maybe he just wants to sit there and follow him, even with the touch that was made in that move. And Sean Romig is now lurking as well. So Munoz can't afford to get aggressive and lose time, because if he does, Romig will get by him.
Yeah, I gotta say, if the roles were reversed, or if I was the one in the car at least, I gotta say I would not be nearly as polite as Munoz has been so far. I think once I'd get to Calquin's bumper, he'd be in the wall. But that's why I'm in those anger management classes.
That's why you're in the comments box for this one. That's why you're not racing.
No, I'm in the commentator's box. I'm in the commentator's box because I'm terrible.
Aren't we all? That's why we're all up here. None of us can race. We're all, yeah, we're better commentators than racers.
I
which,
mean,
to be fair, it doesn't say much.
Those who can't teach, right?
Yeah, something like that. Those who can't do. Alright, so Romig's there. Come Conrod straight, he's going to be sucked up in that slipstream. The bad news for him is Munoz is also getting a slipstream. As Munoz, that was an adventurous line through the dipper. That was almost trouble for him. And he's going to be under a lot of pressure. He's closer to the front of Romig than he is to the back of Calquin. I don't think any of them are close enough to make a move on each other. It's pretty much the closest battle on track too, by the way. There's nothing else really happening up front. And the back of the pack, it's a decent battle for P11 between Duino and Janssen, but not as close as this one into the kink. And Munoz was extremely late on the brakes. Was he too late? Drops a couple tyres off on the right-hand side, but makes the corner just about. And Romig is going to have to think of a new way to try and get by.
Well, it looks like he's definitely putting some thought into it as he's continuing to close in on the two cars in front of him. And I'm being told that there definitely is some damage to Munoz's car. I wonder if that's maybe affecting him on these straightaways with possibly some aerodynamic damage to that machine.
Yeah, you can see the right-hand side of Munoz's machine has got that damage on the front right. So right where the air meets the front of the car, and you want it to be as smooth as possible as it reaches over the car and creates that downforce, pushing the car down onto the track. There's a very unsmooth piece of... Are they made out of carbon fiber? Piece of carbon fiber, I'm going to say. And it will be definitely hurting his top line speed. Or maybe hurting his handling too, because he doesn't look particularly comfortable, suddenly, making his way over the top of the mountain.
Yeah, but it still looks relatively fast, but yeah, I definitely, as he goes wide there into the wall.
Oh. Yeah. I think it was unsettling the handling. He wasn't looking comfortable and just too deep heading into the S's and in towards the dipper. Lost the rear and finds the fence. A mistake we see very often, real world and sim-wise. And just talk us through this replay, Chris. How has this one happened?
All right, as you can see, action's still on track here. As we close just under 10 minutes left in this event.
Welcome back, Chris. We lost you for a bit. You're back.
All right. Yeah, that got yeah. Apparently, we were both in timeout there for a minute.
Alright, I buy an internet. It's horrid. It's horrid. It's probably about the fifth of the speed that you guys get in America, and I'm jealous.
So you have like a kangaroo on a treadmill supplying the service down there, Ryan?
Yeah, we get a kangaroo on a treadmill. That's when we really need it. But most of the time, it's just a koala on a treadmill, which doesn't go as fast. So
Yeah, I've heard
it's
koalas are
struggle sometimes.
mean, so I can see that
No,
being an
it's the
issue.
drop bears. It's the drop bears you've got to watch out for. And at Mount Panorama, there's actually probably a few of them hiding up in those trees, up in the bush. The drop bears they're vicious subspecies of the koala. They're highly volatile. They are. If you ever come to Australia, you've got to watch out for them if you go bush trekking.
I'm pretty sure if you come to Australia, you have to watch out for literally everything. It just wants to kill you.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. Although I've got to say, I live in the city, so I managed to escape most of the creepy crawlies. I hate them. I don't stand. I try to avoid the bush as much as possible. This P10 battle between William Jansen and David Duino, I mentioned it earlier. It's still just about in the works, but the gap's about a second between the two of them. Duino is going to need to find some extra pace here, or maybe rely on Jansen potentially making a mistake to try and get the spot, the final top 10 spot. It always feels better saying I finished 10th than saying I finished 11th.
That's a very true statement. Maybe something resembling mental gymnastics, but still, you got to be able to hold your head high at the end of the day.
It's like seeing that sort of top 10 statistic always helps. Pad those stats. There's also a pretty close battle for P6 between Horatio Calquin and every time I got to change cars, we get to the pit line, and I keep seeing all those retired cars. There's so many of them. It's been a brutal race. Sean Romig is trying to take away P6 from Horatio Calquin. The retirements: Christopher Pfeffer, Christopher Albright, Ignacio Portal, Tyler Dezube, Jeff Corello, Jason Ray, Chase Mundy, Spencer Sulkowicz, James Hebb, Kenny Rodriguez. Kenny Rodriguez is still out on track. He's the last driver running. He's 7 laps down. Ignacio Fredes is back in pit lane. Tremblay is on track, 2 laps down. Schilling and Munoz also. Schilling is, Munoz is a lap down. So many retirements. It's almost half the field. It's been brutal.
Yeah, I think that's a tribute to how challenging this track is. That a lot of these really good drivers we have out there have been unfortunately getting the short end of the stick as far as it goes with the track. This is a great battle though with Calquin and Romig. We saw Munoz in the mix earlier. Ooh, looks like Romig was just going to go full send on the corner there, and unfortunately did not quite work out.
Almost collected the back of Calquin there, which would have been a very awkward spot to recover that car from. It was typical street circuit issues of if you spin, you have to do like a 97-point turn to get the car facing the right way again. Luckily, they don't have to do that. Not now, at least, anyway. As Romig definitely looks like he's the one with the pace. Last time by, Romig did a 2-minute.6. Calquin was a 2-minute 1.3. So, about 7/10 of a second, the difference between them. And this time their times equalised, but only because Romig is tucked right up behind him and in the braking zone. Seems to be where he's finding all that time. He almost got into the back of him again into Murray's corner.
Yeah, so what is the mindset there when you go for kind of an all-out move there and doesn't quite work out? How does Sean Romig kind of regroup and gather it back up to challenge Calquin again?
We've got 4.5 minutes left on the clock, so about 2 laps. So I think he's still just got to be patient. You know he can't have a take here, so there's no point pushing ridiculously hard and making a mistake, because you'll ruin the fact that you're still in P7. I think he's got to focus, as soon as he gets to Brock's Skyline, make sure he's closing up onto the back of Calquin, and then into Forest Elbow. If he's not close enough, don't even try it. Just sit there and set yourself up for the exit down onto Conrad Straight. Even if you come onto the straight, 3 or 4 car lengths behind him, with the slipstream and the run you've got from setting up the exit, you're going to be close enough for a move into the chase. If you defend the inside into the kink, that means you got the inside for the chase, the left-hander, the big braking zone. If you defend the outside for the kink, you can find a lot of extra ground if you go to the inside there. And it can be tough to get done around the outside of the chase, but it can be done.
So we're now closing in on 3 minutes left. So that roughly works out to, what, a lap and a half here, more or less?
It'll be next time that Modoff comes across the start-finish line, it will get that white flag. This time will run out on that lap. And I'll tell you what, this race has actually gone by pretty quickly. It doesn't feel like it's been an hour, but relatively small field. Only 20 odd cars, 25 odd cars we had today. But that's what, there's been battle packs at some point throughout the field, throughout the entire race.
Yeah, that's very true, and you don't necessarily always see that on tracks like this, you know, where there's not a lot of passing zones. Sometimes you do end up with cars just strung out running their own race. So it's been really fun to see here. A lot of great racing, too. This is such a challenging course. And seeing these drivers that actually have to really push themselves to make any moves, I mean, it's really great to see so much great racing and so much good technical racing out there.
There's Kyle Modoff then, the man leading the race by 12.8 seconds now. 2 minutes, 4 seconds left on the clock. It'll be under 2 minutes when he comes across that start-finish line. So he'll get the white flag this time by, and he can afford to do, I think, about a 2-minute 10 lap time, and he'll still win the race. Oh, Pisano. Is he facing the wrong way?
No, he's facing the right way, but he's stopped.
But why? Why? What's happened to him? Through Forest. He's got the car going again.
Maybe he needed to check the map.
Potentially a hardware problem there for Anthony Pisano, which is a big shame for him. Trying to figure out how many spots he's lost. Definitely lost out to Espen Nazara. Wow, John Lavender is right behind him now, so he's gone all the way back to P number 8. That's a huge shame for Pisano, who was running in, I believe, 4th place before that incident occurred. Whatever incident that was. So he'll be a little bit disappointed by that. I'm sure there's a pretty good explanation for that one. But he is now in P8, beginning his final lap of the track. Meanwhile, Kyle Modoff is heading into Forest Elbow. That was an interesting line he just took. Almost rubbing the fence on the left-hand side heading into that corner. Bizarre. Bizarre line that he took. But it's obviously working for him. Because he's coming down Conrad straight, and, well, I said it before, I'll say it again. This is one of the best drives we've seen at Mount Panorama in sim racing. He doesn't get much more dominating on this. Over the course of a 1 hour long race, he's going to win by over 10 seconds. He qualified on pole by 3/10. He took his qualifying pace, he turned it into race pace, and he absolutely ran with it. He's led every single lap from start to finish. Kyle Modoff will win round 7 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series by quite the margin at Mount Panorama. Abner Acosta will come across in 2nd place. In the end, it was 12.3 seconds adrift. Christian Eisler will be in 3rd, just making his way through the chase now. Just having a look for any last-minute battles. What about P5? Horatio Carquin trying to shake the draft of Sean Romig. The battle for the final top 5 position. Romig's going to have to go the long way around at the kink, and he's going to clear him by the time they get to the kink. He's going to have the inside for the chase. What has Carquin got to try and get a spot back from Sean Romig? He's lost it on the final lap for P number 5, Sean Romig. The run down Conrad straight will take that spot away, and into the final corner will solidify his place in 5th position. So, a late exchange between the pair of them, and Calquin's going to have to settle for P6 in the end. I think that's most of the drivers actually across the line. A lot of people are lapped down. Just waiting for Sean to Hummel, who's making his way through Forest Elbow 2, the final car in the lead lap. No other battles across the line though, as Anthony Pisano did in fact end up coming home in 8th place after that bizarre moment for him on the penultimate lap of the race. And what we'll do here is we'll send this one to a break, and when we come back we'll go through those official results and potentially some interviews as well here live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Welcome back to the Global Sim Racing channel, where we have just completed round 7 of the PRL GTE Sportsstcar series, brought to you by Simsa and Butt Kicker. And what a dominating performance it was in car mode off. Let's go through the official results then from Mount Panorama. Mode off won by 12.3 seconds to Abner Acosta, 36 seconds to 3rd place Christian Eisler. Andre Espinoza finished in 4th. Sean Romig took 5th away on the final lap from Horatio Calquin in 6th. Ken Huber came 7th, ahead of Anthony Pisano in 8th. Caleb John Lavender came 9th, and the top 10 was rounded out by William Jensen.
David Duino was just outside of the top 10 and 11th, followed by Robert Elder. And then Sean Duhamel was our final driver on the lead lap. Gary Schilling, 2 laps down, was next up in 14th. Then Jean-Marc Tremblay in 15th. 16th was Paulo Munoz after his fun-filled end portion of the race. Kenny Rodriguez was next in line, followed by Ignacio Rodriguez Paredes, James Hebb, and then Spencer Semkowicz completing the field.
Rest of the drivers are all retirees. Chase Mundy, Jason Ray, Jeff Carollo, Tyler DeZerbe, Ignacio Hortel, Christopher Albright, Christopher Pfeffer, all finishing in the pit lane.
All right, well, we have our winner here with us, Carl Modoff, picking up the big win today and making it look easy. Carl, that looked like a very pleasant drive through Mount Panorama this evening. Tell us about your ride.
Yeah, that was really a lot of fun. One of my favorite tracks on iRacing. The whole mountain section is kind of all one corner, one continuous flow over the top. So, you really get into a nice rhythm over there. And earlier I had this setup that was so twitchy. The rear end had a lot of snap oversteer, but luckily one of my teammates, Wyatt, sent me a great setup that was just much better throughout the whole race. So I was able to continuously run much faster than I was and kind of keep it out of the wall, which is important here and very easy to do. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Great race. Happy to get a win after last week.
Yeah, with big championship implications on that one, as the season is beginning to wind down, you find yourself back a little ways coming into the night. Do you think you still have anything for him here as we head into the last 3 rounds of the season?
I hope so. Yeah, I thought we had 2 drops last week, so I left the server after my incident, and that turns out we only have 1. So I really kind of kicked myself there. Yeah, I just got to try and keep winning races and getting as many bonus points as I can, and hopefully he runs into a little bit of trouble himself. But if not, it's been a good season. I just got to eliminate some of those mistakes, like turning my car off.
Now, with just a few rounds left, any particular tracks you think suit your driving style more so than any of the others?
Not really. This one, I felt like Bathurst kind of, it's really smooth over the top, and that fits my driving style. And the rest, I've never really driven the forward at most of these tracks. My first season with the car, so it'll be a learning experience. I might love them, might hate them. Not sure, but we'll see how it goes. Looking forward.
All right, and before we let you go, Carl, anybody you want to thank that has made your night possible?
Yeah, I just want to thank Evolution Sim Sport, my teammate Wyatt, for the setup. That really helped out. And then thank you guys over at GSRC for broadcasting the race and PRL for hosting. Everyone that puts effort into this.
All right, well, congratulations once again. Our winner, Carl Modoff, picking up the big win here this evening at Bathurst.
And we've also got Abner Acosta here in the booth with us. A very lonely race, I must say. But P2 nonetheless, another solid day for your championship. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah, it was a tough race. It's not one of my best tracks. Definitely, Moto had a lot of pace, so there was no way to catch him.
Yeah, he found something tonight, and he ran away with it, didn't he? Not much you could do about that one. In terms of the championship, it does help him just a little bit in terms of that, pulls him a little bit closer to you. Are you still pretty confident of taking out the championship? I mean, you've only got a 4-point lead, but you are the current leader. How confident are you heading into the final couple of rounds?
I feel fine. I think this is probably my most scariest track was this one, so I was just trying to stay alive. And I feel more confident about the next tracks coming up. So as long as I keep doing what I'm doing and say top 3 finishes, I think I should be fine.
I have a bit of confidence on you leading a championship that is so close. Well, talking about the last couple of rounds, any particular tracks in mind that you can highlight to potentially come away with a very good result and seal the championship?
Yeah, I think upcoming is Sebring. Not next round, but I think I'm fairly good at that one. And I think basically overall the next 3 rounds, I feel pretty confident. I think basically this one was the one that I was thinking it would be my drop week, just because you have to be 100% at this track, and if you think about anything else while you're in that mountain, you're probably gonna have an incident. So I kind of just dealt with it. Just saw Moto, he was just had too much pace, and I just started just to think about just finishing the race. That was just my main goal, just finishing this race.
Well, for someone that's just trying to finish the race, I think P2 is a pretty good result. Before we let you go, if you've got anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, and sponsors and the like.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys, obviously, for broadcasting, my team, Mivano, and the sponsors, Buck Kicker and Simsa. And have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abner, for joining us up here in the booth. And what are your final thoughts before I wrap this one up, Chris?
Well, as I kind of mentioned early on, this is the first real experiences I've had with the Mount Panorama circuit, and like I said during the broadcast, I'm in love. This track is amazing. The racing action was great. A huge, challenging track, beautiful scenery. I think we had a great show tonight, and it was fun working with you, Ryan.
It's good to work with you too, and hopefully we can do it again at some time. One of the future races coming up for Global Sim Racing channel. That'll about do us for today. So thank you to our sponsors, Simsa and Butt Kicker. Thank you to the organizer, Precision Racing League. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast, listed on your screen as well. Additional thanks to June Londe, who provides our wonderful music. You can see the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Joe and Chris. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSRC Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Gram. And if you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well, so that you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Next up for this race, for this series, is the Barcelona GP Circuit Round 8, coming up at the same time next week. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But from all of us here on the booth for tonight, thank you for joining us, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.